Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is the Sentinel watching over Geekdom, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Our look at RWBY Volume 7 continues with Chapter 2, A New Approach. As always, I will be talking about spoilers, but the episode is free to view to the general public now, so if you go to the description box down below, and the link to Chapter 2 will be provided, so you can watch it and then come back to this review where I will be discussing spoilers. And right off the bat, yes, this is late again. I'm sorry. These are probably going to be late because the episodes I'm reviewing become public on Saturdays, and right now in my house, we are remodeling our kitchen. And the bulk of this is being done on the weekends when my dad is off from work. So, and when that happens, my living space, my studio space, is not always my space. So, just please be patient and expect these to come out late. And right off the bat, here with Chapter 2, there is a lot more to talk about than there was with Chapter 1. And I think really that's the issue with reviewing RWBY episodically. Because, let me see if I can grab one. When they're released on DVD and Blu-ray, there is, putting it back, two ways to watch it. You can watch them episodically, or you can watch them edited into one feature, with the first opening sequence and the final end credit sequence, and all the episodes edited together into one feature. And that really is the way to watch RWBY, because watching it all together, there is a nicer flow, it moves nicer, and you get much more at once. Whereas watching it episodically and reviewing it episodically, you don't get that same sort of viewing experience. And watching this episodically, like I said, it makes it harder to review because most episodes are under 20 minutes long, so there's not a lot to talk about. Especially in the episodes that are action sequences, because all you can really talk about is how good the animation is, how good the fight sequence itself is, and outside of it, there's not a lot to talk about. Until you get to an episode like this, sort of more of an exposition episode. The characters get a chance to breathe and catch up. And as I said, that's what this episode is. The team, after being arrested at the end of the first episode, is brought directly to Ironwood. And we see Winter as well, who we have not seen since Volume 3. And there's not really a lot to say on Winter yet. I liked her in Volume 3, I like her in RWBY Chibi, but we haven't really we haven't seen her since Volume 3, and how she is now is more of the same of how she is since Volume 3. We haven't seen how the fall of Beacon has affected her yet. We haven't seen how the events since Volume 3 have affected her yet. The same can't be said of Ironwood. We have seen how what's happened has affected him. You know, in Volume 4, he put an embargo on Atlas. No one gets in or out. He's basically shut off Atlas from the rest of the world. And in stories like this, there is a tendency to make characters like Ironwood a villain of sorts. You know, that superiority, I'm right, you're wrong, my way or the highway. They don't do that with Ironwood. They're really careful not to do that with Ironwood. You know, they show where his thought process comes from. They explain why he's making the decisions he's making. They're not always the right decisions, but at least they explain that, you know, he's not a bad guy for thinking differently. And I admire that. Also, one of my OTPs for RWBY is Iron Crow, so but that aside, and meeting Ironwood in person, we see everything. The fall of Beacon, cutting off Atlas, has just taken such a toll on him. He is tired, and he is terrified. You know, it's just the relief that washes over him when he sees the main group again. And we get a lot more of probably what this season is going to be about. Ironwood is going to launch Amity Arena from Volume 3, where the Vital Festival was, into the atmosphere with a new communications tower to reestablish global communication, hoping that the Grimm will not be able to affect it this time. He's also going to reveal the truth about Salem, which the show, again, goes out of its way to show is a really bad idea, because Salem controls the Grimm. And, obviously revealing, hey, there's been this whole secret war going on, and led by this woman who controls the Grimm, it's going to create a panic. And the Grimm feed off fear and panic, so really what this is going to do is empower Salem. But that's Ironwood's reasoning for the embargo, so he can better, once Atlas is assuaged and taken care of, he can then handle the other kingdoms. But still, it doesn't put the viewer at ease. It's still a very tense situation, and it reassures the viewer that this is a bad idea. We also get a lot more blink and you'll miss it sort of exposition bits, like the Winter Maiden. They explain, all we really get is that she's no spring chicken, according to Crow, which means she might be an older woman. And that Ironwood that since the fall of Beacon, Ironwood has established his own inner circle, considering of the Aesops, who we briefly met in this episode and briefly met in the previous episode. I think we'll get more in depth with them in the next episode, from what I've seen on Twitter, but yeah, we still don't know that much about them, as well as Penny and Winter. And then there are some interesting things here, like RWBY explained, the group explains to Ironwood that Ozpin has reincarnated into Oscar, but then RWBY goes to say that Ozpin is unavailable. Basically, there was a train crash, which there was, and since then, Ozpin has sort of been comatose in Oscar's mind. And then Ironwood says that we'll find a way to bring him back out, which, given the opening sequence, I'm really worried I know what he's gonna do. And again, it's a really bad idea. And, this is interesting because last year in Volume 6, we learned some of the secrets Ozpin was keeping from the main characters and the way they lashed out. However, if anything, Volume 6 confirmed that, given the way everyone reacted, Ozpin was in the right to do that. He was in the right to keep secrets. And now, similarly, RWBY has learned that you need to keep your cards close to your chest. You can't reveal your hand. So she has learned, since those events, that sometimes is the best way to go. Chapter 2, A New Approach. It was really just a good way for characters, for the cast to meet characters they hadn't seen in a while, for everyone to catch up, and to sort of give viewers the game plan for what Volume 6 was going to be. Oh, the ending. And then we see that Watts and Tyrion have arrived in Mantle, which it's actually a really cool scene because Watts explains that he designed some of the computer systems and that as Atlas upgrades itself, Mantle falls behind and doesn't get those upgrades, which he hacks into in, again, a really cool scene. When a car drives towards him, he pulls up the roadblocks that the car crashes into. He disables cameras as they pass him. But yeah, those were my thoughts on A New Approach. What were yours? Please start a conversation in the comments below, along with the episode. In the description below, you will find the link to my Ko-fi, where you can help support the channel, and you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video around, and this is the Sentinel watching over Geekdom, and I'll see you guys next time.